She told me, if you disappeared, no one would even notice. For years, I was invisible.
Have you ever felt completely invisible to the person who's supposed to see you the most? I'm talking about that slow, creeping feeling when the person lying next to you every night might as well be a stranger. This isn't just a story. It's a reality for so many people, and it's what happened to me. My wife, Sarah, and we used to be everything to each other. Our life was a whirlwind of laughter, late-night talks, and shared dreams. We built a beautiful home, had 2 amazing kids, and from the outside, we were the perfect couple. But somewhere along the way, the color drained out of our picture-perfect life. The laughter faded into polite smiles. The deep conversations turned into logistical updates about bills and parent-teacher meetings. I felt like a ghost in my own home. I'd walk into a room, and she wouldn't look up from her phone. I'd tell a story about my day, and she'd nod absently, her mind clearly a million miles away. It wasn't one big fight that did it. It was 1,000 tiny moments of indifference. I remember one night, I'd come home from a brutal week at work, having just landed a huge project I'd been fighting for. I was bursting with excitement, eager to share the news. When I walked in, Sarah was on the couch, scrolling through her social media feed. I said, "Honey, you won't believe what happened today." She just hummed in response, her eyes glued to the screen. I stood there for a full minute, waiting. Nothing. It was like I hadn't even spoken. The excitement I felt deflated into this hollow ache in my chest. That was the moment a desperate, slightly crazy idea began to form in my mind. I needed to know if she would even notice if I was gone. Not just out for the day, but gone. Disappeared. It was a drastic thought, I know, but I felt like I was drowning, and this was my last, desperate gasp for air. So I started planning my own disappearance. I chose a Wednesday, a day with no special significance. I packed a small bag with essentials: a change of clothes, a toothbrush, and a book. I withdrew some cash from an ATM far from our usual spots. The whole time, I felt this bizarre mix of terror and exhilaration. Part of me was screaming, "This is insane. Go home and talk to her." But the other part, the part that had been starved for a sign, any sign of her affection, whispered, "You have to do this. You have to know." The morning I left, the house was in its usual state of controlled chaos. Kids getting ready for school, Sarah orchestrating the morning rush. I kissed my son and daughter goodbye, holding them a little tighter than usual. I walked over to Sarah in the kitchen. "I love you," I said, searching her eyes for any flicker of connection. She was busy buttering toast. "Love you too," she mumbled, not looking up, and that was it. That was our goodbye. I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove away, not to work, but to a cheap motel on the other side of the city. The first day was the hardest. Every buzz of my phone made my heart leap, thinking it was her. But the calls were just from my boss, wondering why I hadn't shown up. I ignored them. I watched the hours crawl by. Morning turned to afternoon, afternoon to evening. I imagined her coming home, seeing my car wasn't there, maybe feeling a small pang of worry. I imagined her calling my friends, her voice laced with concern. The kids would ask where Daddy was. Surely she'd notice. Surely she'd care. But the first day ended with silence. No frantic calls, no worried texts, nothing. The second day was a slow burn agony. The hope I'd clung to started to curdle into a bitter certainty. I spent the day staring at the cracked ceiling of the motel room, replaying our life together. The first date, our wedding day, the birth of our children. Where did that man go? Where did that woman go? How did we end up here? By nightfall on the second day, a single text message finally came through. It was from Sarah. My hands were shaking as I opened it. It said, "Where's the remote for the garage door? The one in my car is dead." That was it. That was the moment everything shattered. 2 days. I had been gone for 2 full days, and the only thing she needed from me was the location of a spare remote. It wasn't about my safety, my well-being, or my absence. It was about convenience. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't a husband. I was part of the household inventory. A handyman, a provider. But the man she had promised to love and cherish? He had disappeared long before I ever walked out that door. I didn't reply to the text. I just sat there in the dark, the glow of the phone illuminating the tears on my face. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was a profound, empty clarity. The experiment was over. I had my answer. The next morning, I drove home. Walking back into my own house felt like entering a foreign country. Everything was the same, yet completely different. Sarah was in the kitchen, just like when I left, this time on a video call for work. She saw me, and for a second her eyes widened. Not with relief, but with surprise, maybe even annoyance that I had interrupted her. She ended her call and turned to me, her arms crossed. "Where have you been?" "Your boss has been calling nonstop." "You just disappeared?" Her tone wasn't one of worry, but of accusation, as if my absence was an inconvenience she had to manage. "I needed to see if you would notice," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "If you would care that I was gone." Her face hardened. "What is that supposed to mean? You think you can just walk out, not answer your phone, and play some stupid game? I have a job, I have kids to take care of. I don't have time for your drama." And that was the final nail in the coffin. It wasn't a game, it was a cry for help. A final, desperate attempt to be seen by the one person I thought I could count on. We stood there in the kitchen, the space between us filled with years of unspoken words and unresolved resentment. The argument that followed wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, sharp, and final. Every word she said confirmed what I already knew. She hadn't been ignoring me. She just hadn't been thinking about me at all. My presence, my feelings, my very existence had become background noise in her life. We decided to separate that day. There was no big dramatic scene. It was a calm, almost businesslike decision. The love had died so long ago that we were just two co-workers running a household. Selling the house we built together, dividing our lives, telling the kids, it was the most painful thing I've ever done. They were confused and hurt, and I carry that guilt with me every single day. Was there a better way? Could I have just talked to her? Maybe, but I was so broken I felt like I had nothing left to say. It's been a year now. I live in a small apartment across town. I see my kids on weekends. Life is different. It's lonelier in some ways, but it's also more honest. I'm no longer a ghost. I'm just me, learning to live with the silence. Sometimes I wonder if Sarah ever thinks about it, if she ever understood the depth of the void that had grown between us. I'll probably never know. This story isn't about placing blame. It's a cautionary tale. Don't let the silence grow. Don't let your partner become invisible. Notice them. Talk to them. Fight with them if you have to, because the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference, and indifference is a quiet, patient killer of relationships. Don't wait until you need a desperate, crazy plan to see if you still matter. By then, it might already be too late. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, or if you've been through something similar, please share your thoughts in the comments. It helps to know we're not alone. And if you'd like to hear more stories about life, love, and navigating the messy parts in between, please subscribe to the channel. Take care of each other.